There we go. So this is July 16th, AKV3. Welcome, everybody. I will take a second here to get the agenda up here and see if I've got the right screen. That looks like the right one. So just real quickly, kind of outlining the agenda, and we'll get into introductions. We've got a couple updates I wanted to just touch on here, just following up on things that have been going on in the last week, and a couple loose ends. And then the focus that we were going to have today was to dive a little deeper into the Greg's Hotel workbook approach to organizational design. And I've got a Miro board set up that we'll be able to use to do a little bit of sticky note work on that and see how that goes. I hope you'll find that that workbook and some of the tools there are not only useful for some of framing some of the discussion going on with what we're doing, but I think you'll find it's also just a really good way for any of you with any organization to think through change management, because it's essentially just a pretty standard model that's been well developed for change management processes. So let's go ahead and back up with that in mind with just quick introductions of everyone, what you've got going on, anything significant that's popped up recently, and then as well as if there's anything else you want to add to the agenda before we dive into it, and then we'll go from there. So Sarah, you want to kick it off?
Sure. I don't have much. I did attend Laura's founders meeting, which was really good. I liked being able to kind of be open to people in the community. I've always had like online communities, and I've always found that was really easier to open up to people, because I was aware that I was probably never going to meet them in real life, and so therefore it would never really affect me. So to do that in a group where I knew everyone pretty much, like I knew I could see them around town and stuff eventually, was a little nerve-wracking for me, but good, healthy. Other than that, yeah, like I said at the beginning, I've been taking a lot of breaks these past few weeks, which has been nice. Gonna start a big project here soon though, so it's kind of like a calm before the storm.
That's great, thanks. Bradley, what's going on with you?
Hey there. Just trying to cram as much work into the morning as possible here. It's my 5th anniversary today with Rachel, so planning to get out of town and yeah, do some hopefully some canoeing. We just got a Kevlar canoe from the Hoarding Marmots, so really stoked to get that out there. And getting prepared for a site visit to Congiganak on Monday to talk about getting some drone stuff spun up for them in the fall. And then, then I've got a meeting with Sabres Unite leadership on Monday as well to talk about what the first event here in Alaska is going to look like for in person, and yeah, how we want to engage with community up here. So that's what's going on for me.
That's exciting. Congratulations on the anniversary too.
Thanks.
Laura?
I have 500 non-self-sticking envelopes I have to get rid of. So, you know, I got to say, we're at a really interesting juncture in Pandir. You know, we keep making it through every crisis, and it's bizarre. I mean, on the one hand, I want to pat myself in the back and say, woohoo, we're not dead. On the other hand, I don't feel any sense of gratification. But what an interesting ride. You know, God, the learning is just ongoing and substantial. And, you know, it is weird to keep on breaking through each problem. It's just problem solving. That seems to be all it is. So anyway, there you go. That's what I'm doing.
That sounds great. Well, I think it's a lesson in learning how to appreciate each step. because sometimes that's where you get the satisfaction. And again, your founders group, anything you want to report in terms of how that went, or next meetings or anything like that?
I think we're still a little bit trying to figure out on process. I mean, what we ended up deciding was that we would kind of go around the room next time, and each person would share a success and a challenge, and then if they wanted to, an opportunity. So that'll take up about a quarter of the meeting. Maybe it's probably going to take up more. And then I think the plan for next time is either, what I'm going to do is check in with people a few days before and see if they have a problem. Because I kind of threw it out to the group without any warning. I was like, does anybody have a problem that they want to bring to the next meeting? And really, it's just too far ahead to be able to think that way. So I'll check in with people, see if they have a problem that they'd like to bring to the meeting and discuss. I probably could be that person if nobody else has something to discuss. I have plenty of problems. I don't mind discussing them. The backup plan, if nobody has anything, or that doesn't seem like a good direction to go in, then I think we'll just pick a topic and then we'll just discuss the topic. That one doesn't seem as interesting to me, but this is a summer test. And I'm thinking, you know, Sarah, just capitalizing on what you said before, if people want to do a Zoom meeting, I'm hoping somebody else steps up to do that, because I don't think I'm going to be the person who's going to do that.
I think, Laura, you had mentioned early on the idea that perhaps this might split up into potentially 2 groups or more groups, that this might become a prototype that could then...
Well, it's already 2 groups right now. There's the in-person and the Zoom, and there's no crossover right now. So,
fascinating.
I mean, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if we can get an in-person meeting together. That's the other question, is will people show up? And if they don't, then I'll just rely on outside.
Okay.
It'd be nice to have an Alaska group where we could meet in person. And I'm not saying I won't go to the Zoom meetings. That's not what I'm saying at all. I would be happy to participate. I just don't want to facilitate it. It's just not the right kind of bandwidth for me right now.
Gotcha. Okay. And then is the Slack channel that you've set up something that might bridge across all of that? Or do you have a different Slack channel?
I mean, there's kind of a limited interest in Slack. I think Slack is as good as everyone uses it. So once we get a little more traction, I think the Slack might have some more use, but it's definitely a fine place to be capturing things.
Okay. I've got a blue card tool. I've made a note in here to share with you, but if I don't remember to do that before next meeting, nudge me on that. I've got something I think you might find useful for trying.
Did you say blue card tool?
Yep.
Okay.
We're trying to get people engaged in some of the challenges and opportunities that are immediately facing them that might help spark some discussion.
I mean, part of the problem is I'm spending all my hustle getting customers for Pandir. So I have sort of this limited amount of hustle that I can give to rustling up people for the founders work group. So that's where a little bit of the issue is.
That's good to hear. Okay, good, thanks. Pasquale, what's going on with you?
This week pretty busy at work, and then pretty busy after work. Is one of those weeks again that I have to look at the alarm. Yeah, I need to go to bed, and probably I should stop and back and stuff. And yesterday was even worse. I mean, it was pretty late, and that's exciting, but also tiring. And this summer has been good. I've been having some talks with some folks coming from the lower 48 that they are definitely moving here. And honestly, it's pretty bright once you see those fresh news from the lower 48. And Kai, you're there, how things are looking like in some places that we used to consider like, oh, they're amazing, I would like to move there if I'm not in Alaska. And after hearing what's going on, I don't even know if I want to get close. So that also reminds me, working on the document that we have today, remind me to put there that we have some good things to offer. So we have some amazing potential that we just did not realize that we had just because we are used to have it. And once we see what's going on the outside, we realize that, oh, that's probably our competitive advantage as an state, as an economy, that we just took for granted. But so anyway, long story short, amazing week, full of good things.
Sounds great. And then do I recall you guys put the founders group on the AKV3 website someplace?
Yes, it's under Connect,
I see.
and we have the AKV3 on the top and then founders on the bottom. And some of those dates may not change in the future, but as of today, those are what they are, and those are the channels that we use. If we,
I think in terms of promotion, the main thing is share the link to the form, because the form allows me to collect some information about each person, and then I can put them in the group. So if anybody wants to share something, the main thing is to share the form or the link.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay, good. I'm just putting that in the notes. Thanks for doing that. And Pascal, thanks for the updates. I know you did the website. Julie, what's going on today?
Hey, not a whole lot over here. I'm kind of torn between doing work and having some projects and event that I am working on, and then also just trying to be outside in the sun. So yeah, been balancing those, and yeah, just kind of moving into meditation. I plan to be a hermit on a mountaintop this weekend, and I'm looking forward to it.
Sounds great. I hope the mountaintop cooperates with you.
Me too.
Tracy, good to see you today. What have you been up to?
Apparently trying to unmute. Hi, Kai. Bradley, you make me feel very old. I have an anniversary in August, and my husband and I decided we would actually go do something because we haven't done something for quite a while. And let's just say it's 5 years plus a whole lot more, which is a good thing, but it's a weird thing. So congratulations. And Dick, oh my goodness, a face from like a million years ago. How you doing? I know Dick from APU days, although we very rarely ever crossed in the same place. So it's very nice to see you.
Oh, yeah. You know Ryan, of course, right?
Yeah. So it was kind of fun to see the two of you show up. You know, I will just say that normally I just say hello, but I actually have a few thoughts that are rattling in my head that I have no idea whether they have any value here. But I was just the luncheon speaker for the membership meeting for Visit Anchorage yesterday. And so I did a bunch of research to try and have a better understanding of tourism and hospitality, and kind of what the data is saying in addition to what I know and have experienced on my own. And there was some news feed that I read that said in April of 2021, in the US 4 million people quit their jobs, including 740,000 in leisure and hospitality. And I just wonder, as we're thinking about the future of Alaska's economy and the role of tourism as really number 2 in the state prior to COVID, and the whole sort of national trend on people leaving their jobs and people not going back to jobs. And, it depends on who you read, whether or not it is wages at the bottom of the income scale, whether it is the nature of work itself and the fact that people on the bottom end of the income scale can't do knowledge work. It's just not an option. You can't put a plated dinner down in front of somebody on Zoom. It's just, what is the future of those kind of businesses? Where are we missing that in our conversations? Where are we missing the nature of what work might be? And I realize we're not missing it, but I keep kind of coming back to the directionality of our conversations. And if we're really looking at what the future of the economy is, what's the nature of work and what people are willing to do and not willing to do or interested in doing? And yeah, so it was just very interesting to sit, first off, with 100 people in a room, and actually be in a room with people was, weird in and of itself. And, knowing how, I did just kind of a hands up poll, and, over half the people in the room had, greater than 25% revenue decreases in the last year. It was probably much greater. I'm sure people didn't really want to hold up their hands. And so many of them are small businesses. There's the big chains and the big lines, but a lot of them are, Bob's dog mushing and tea, kind of things. And I don't know, that's just random thoughts, but I really walked away from that thinking that, you know, even just the nature of what work is and how that relates to how people are going to pay their bills. And the research that I've read says that it's really not unemployment benefits that's causing this. You know, that the states that have extended unemployment benefits, in fact, are seeing higher rates of return to work. But the whole retention problem and the whole morale problem is enormous in that industry. So it was an interesting kind of dive into an area I don't spend a lot of time. So just food for thought. Thanks. I figure for all the time I say nothing, I just took up my, last 10 times in these meetings giving something to say.
I think what you're raising is a really valuable issue in terms of, as we think about this next Alaska, we have to be cognizant of some of the big mega trends. And I think we're all witnessing the beginning, deconstruction of some of our old expectations in another facet of our world. And I think we're at a very fascinating time to perhaps, think about what this next Alaska economy is with these big trends and this disruption going on. And we could either ignore it and try and put the world back together again the way it was, or we might be able to take advantage of some of these changes and think about how does that inform what we might create. So I think it's a good observation. It sounds like a wonderful discussion you were able to have with the group.
And I would strongly recommend that we don't try to put things back where they were.
No kidding. I started, if you go back to my blog posts over a year ago, I started talking about the new normal, and I've had a hard time getting people to want to talk about that. That just turned out to be the big surprise for me over the last year, is how hard that is for people to think about new normals, whether or not it's an adaptation of the old into something new or something completely new. A lot of folks just wanted to get back to the way things were, and that survival instinct is strong. But let's see.
Homeostasis. It's a brutal force. Homeostasis, it's a brutal force.
It is, and that's part of what I like about this model we're going to touch on, is it really understands how much the status quo is built in and baked in, and how hard it fights back, whether or not it's overtly or whether it's subtly, it's still there. Hey, Dick, it is really great to see you. And Ryan, of course, always good to see you. If you guys wouldn't mind just a quick introduction from the two of you and what's going on, anything interesting you want to share?
Well, yeah, thanks. Ryan came over for breakfast this morning and he was about ready to take off. And I said, well, let's just pull it up on my computer. So here we are.
Nice to see you, Dick, as well. It's been a while.
Yeah, Bradley, there you are. Good man. All right. Yeah, it's a good group. Well, one thing I learned, there's a lot of libraries on the West Coast thanks to Kai and his wife. So that was kind of cute. I like seeing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as far as Alaska's next economy, I'm working with 3 clients right now. They're all different hands on the economy, from a tribal group, nonprofit, very traditional, to a large native corporation, to a public utility, and all of them are dealing with back to work, or how do they make sense out of this, not only our changing economy here in Alaska, but globally. A lot of unanswered. There's a lot of uncertainty out there.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Tracy, you sparked some thoughts from me. I had a chance to attend the Chamber of Commerce Make It Monday Forum, and they were looking at workplace shortages, and some of the numbers that came out of that conversation came from David McCarthy with 49th State, and he said that in the past he would have about a one out of every 2 people that he would bring on would stay through the full season. He'd have about a 50% retention rate in his folks. And this year with COVID, he's got about a 1 in 6 retention rate. And that just sounds absolutely brutal for trying to hire people and then get them trained up, get them able to work and up to speed, and then try and keep them around. That would be a very hard thing. And in that conversation, there was some folks that spoke on changes in the labor market and what people's expectations for jobs are, changes in what's available for healthcare, how much it costs. There were some numbers for pay, and 3 of the fairly common positions within childcare, pay less than what a McDonald's corporate position would pay at this point. McDonald's at their corporate locations pays all of their staff $15 an hour. If you're owned by a local franchisee, then they can set their pay rates. But there's some tough decisions that people are making right now on whether they should go work and then pay all of their money for childcare to take care of their kids, if they can find somebody who's willing to provide that childcare, or if they should just spend that time with their kids themselves. And so I think there's a lot of nuance and a lot of moving pieces that are happening in our workforce right now, and it's exciting and challenging. But I really am more excited about moving forward than I am going back to the old normal. I don't really see that as a viable option.
Great, Ryan, thanks. Elijah, why don't you bring it home for us?
Hey guys, yeah, my name's Elijah. I'm still working on a live-work entrepreneurial studio in Wasilla, and I'm kind of stoked. I got some money, and I just started, bringing in my workaway people again. I got a skilled electrician for the next month and a half. It's gonna help me get everything wired out so that I can keep this place forward and hopefully start packing the house over the winter. So. Yeah, just kind of excited. It's been a long stagnation and ready to move forward. So yeah, stoked. We're working on building right now. We're putting in the community kitchen. So yep, stoked to be here, guys.
Wonderful. Nickel tour for me. I'm flying back to Anchorage tomorrow after 2 months of being on the road. And it's been a wonderful trip. If you guys are interested at all in libraries in the West, check out my Facebook feed to learn more of what Dick was mentioning, and lots of good lessons from this trip I hope to share down the road. I want to continue on, though, to get to some of the focus of the strategy discussion, but just a couple quick updates on things going on. We touched on the founders group already, and appreciate Laura working on that. Any of you that have that interest in founders, please work with her. And again, that link is there for the form if she wants to do. Second item is Ryan and I are landing on August 8th as a date to try and put together some sort of event at the 3rd and Ingress site. And we don't have much identified in terms of what will happen on that at this point. It'll be an opportunity, though, I think, to collaborate with Heritage Land Bank to learn more about their master plan, potentially with the organization that Ryan's working with to help sponsor this, maybe some of the next Alaska issues. And I think it's all kind of up in the air for us to figure out, but we've got a date, and maybe that will now drive some things. Ryan, what would you like to add about your thoughts on that date and what you see maybe doing with that? And then as folks are pondering this, I'd like to find out if there's going to be a couple of you that would like to be part of a planning team to work on that event. But Ryan, why don't you share a little bit more about what you see for this possible meetup opportunity?
Yeah, thanks, Kai. So at this point, we have a tentative date picked out. I think that I feel pretty all right with staking that one down, unless there's a big set of challenges from members of the group, because ideally I'd like to see as many folks from AKV3 able to attend as possible. And the hope is that we can work and do a little site activation at the 3rd and Ingress site, and use that as a physical gathering space to have some conversation around what are some of the challenges that we have going on in our community, how do we want to work together to address those challenges, and what are some of the opportunities that we see. I think that there is some opportunity to do a little bit of some longer term visioning or planning to sort of figure out maybe when the fall rolls around, what does that reverse pitch competition look like, or how do we start to think about what are the challenges that we want to elevate as an organization. But I do think that we really would benefit from having some space to talk about who are we, what do we think are the important issues that we want to tackle, and how do we come at these challenges. So I just, at this point, I'm kind of seeing it as a longer chunk of time for us to chew through some of the meatier issues that we've been trying to address.
Great. Are there any of you that are particularly interested and would like me to add your name to helping plan this event and get involved with this?
What was the date on that, Kai?
August 8th. I think that's Sunday. Is that an expression of some interest?
Yeah,
This is Elijah. This is Elijah. I'll be happy to help any way I can.
Thanks, Elijah. Was that a qualified yes, Bradley?
yes, yeah. I'm just bringing up my calendar. I should be around then.
Oh, perfect. Okay, good. I think, given the time frame of this, I don't think we need to think of this as something big, fancy, and formal, but I think we can have some fun and get together on the site, learn about it, and enjoy a little bit of FaceTime as well as talking about some of these things.
That's good. I like Julie's question, and after that answer, I'll let you know whether I can help.
Yeah, Ryan, do you have some thoughts on the schedule? I know I will probably want to steer towards afternoon-ish or something, just because I know I've got church things going on in the morning. But Ryan, what was your thought on timing of something?
Yeah, I think, afternoonish makes a lot of sense to me. Give ourselves a little bit of time to wake up and find ourselves in the morning, and then find our way downtown. I will be frank. I'm pretty flexible for what exactly it looks like, and really my goal is more to make sure that we can get as many people involved and engaged as possible.
Tracy?
I'll help, Kai.
Okay. Well, that is a good start on that. I'll do some nudging along with Ryan, and we'll do some more discussion offline later this week or this next week on that. Have a little bit more next week to do on that. Let's see the writing contest results. I was just out nudging with Alaska Humanity Forum today to find out if they've got everything. Sarah, do you happen to know if Jan and the group there has everything they need, or is there anything missing that we need to go nudge some of our participants to help finish that up so that they can have everything that they need for the magazine?
Yeah, I've been in contact with them. I just need to double check the spreadsheet, and I had planned on doing that today to make sure that at least we have all the winners' information and bios, but I'm pretty sure we do. But yeah, I have been back and forth with all the writers trying to get everything together. So should have a final say, or at least a final nudge today.
Okay, good. And next time you're chatting with Jan or whoever is working on that, I'm thinking I'd like to figure out how to get at least 50 copies of the magazine. And I'm fine figuring out how to pay for it so that we can get copies of that out to the AKV3 community and others, including the participants, to thank them.
That'd be awesome.
For participation, as well as to the sponsors, to thank them for the participation and support of this. Okay, last thing, and I'm not going to belabor this one because we need to move along now, watching the time. I've put a note out there to some, it didn't go out to the full group, but I'm working on the reverse pitch and potentially a planning workshop for sometime in early September. And I've been discussing this with Margot Fliss at UAA Center for Economic Development in terms of partnering with them and using this as a funnel filling activity for some of their programs where they're trying to get more people into the Upstart Alpha and some of the other student activities. So I'm currently out polling for people doing something either the afternoon, evening of September 1st or 2nd. That's like a Wednesday or Thursday, or a week later, Wednesday, Thursday. So this is bounded around Labor Day, or potentially the weekend on the auspicious date of September 11th on there. And you guys can be pondering that. This still needs to be pulled together, but I'm looking at this having two components. One is a little more face-to-face formal planning time for some of our projects, but also having a public reverse pitch process. And I'm motivated to try and do this sooner than later so it can influence a lot of the fall activities around the challenges that matter in that area. So to that end, what I want to show you briefly is I started the challenge curation. In our meeting last week, we were talking about the mentorship, coaching, connectedness issue, and we said that last week that we were going to put that into one of those challenge areas that we understood was potentially important for the future of this next Alaska to work. And I mentioned that I would start trying to curate a list of these investable challenges that matter. And I've put the link into the chat. What I want to, I guess, just show you very briefly is what I'm doing with this. And then the link you've got there, you can add more stuff to it. But this is, let me get this expanded here so it's a little bigger. It's got a little bit of information at the beginning. It's basically a slide deck. It's got a little information at the beginning about what is AKV3 or what is version 3 of the economy. And I'm trying to really land on this idea that these challenges that matter are going to be ones that are not moving past or ignoring our old subsistence economy or the extraction economy, but in fact that our future economy is one that strengthens those and enhances those where we can, as well as building new value-added industries that go beyond that. So I'm trying to get that idea landed and out there clear, as well as understanding the importance of these challenges to strengthening our future civic and market economy. But here's where I really want to go. I'm trying to build a template of what these challenges might be, and the intent behind this ultimately is that each of these challenges might become then part of that reverse pitch. So we might find an organization to come to the reverse pitch event to share their view of these challenges and why they're investable, why they're important, why they matter to Alaska. And so I've got some in there. These are in no order: eliminating distance in Alaska. I just added during the discussion today this changing nature of work and the challenge that means, but it also creates a wonderful potential opportunity for remote work and distributed work that might be an advantage for Alaska. There's the whole issue of tourism and right-sizing it and the impact that tourism has. I added, and this was the key thing that got me working on this, was the new venture coaching and connecting issue from our last week discussion that we said we needed to, at least for the moment, capture that as a challenge and something important. I've got other challenges in there that have been floating around: the internet for all Alaska, housing and homelessness issues, health system challenges, our education system, remote Arctic logistics, rural economies, food security, the blue ocean economy, Alaska Energy Prize. And like I said, it just was kind of a beginning capture of a lot of those issues. So I hope if you get a chance, the link for that is in the meeting minutes and agenda today, as well as I just shared it in the chat. And if any of you would like to add some more challenges to that, or add some of your own thoughts to those challenges, I would welcome that as I begin to try and begin capturing more of this information to be able to share it in the future and build out the reverse challenge pitch competition. So let me pause for a second and see if you have any questions about what that is or what it's.
Can you explain what a reverse challenge pitch is?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked. This is something I ran into a few years ago that I was absolutely fascinated by. And these are essentially, reverse pitches are about getting folks to share the need that they have. And it's referred to as a reverse pitch because you're essentially pitching the need and the problem rather than pitching the solution. So we normally go to pitch competitions and we hear people pitch their business ideas, their new startup, and they're pitching them with the idea of getting support for it. And this is turning it around and getting folks to come and pitch the problem with the idea of trying to make it enticing enough that it will encourage folks to want to work on that problem and to see the value in working on it. And it's been done at universities in other parts of the country as a way to help students learn about problem areas that they might use in their entrepreneurship and innovation courses. We've also used it here in Alaska a couple times as a reverse pitch for funders. We've had angel investors and funding organizations pitch their organizations and what they're looking for and what they're funding in order to try and attract people to do things that align with their funding opportunity. So it's all about trying to put some more pull into the innovation ecosystem rather than just simply hoping somebody magically comes up with an interesting new business venture. This is actually putting the pull in there that says we need ventures that solve this problem, whether that's energy transitions, whether it's long distance remote logistics, whether that's low cost housing to deal with the constraints on our rural and even our urban communities. And you could imagine, you know, at least the four main pitches that come to mind that I'm hoping will be there will be Launch Alaska, pitching the energy transition, decarbonization mission they have and pitching why that's important and why they can be able to support organizations and invest in them if they do that. There's the Health Tie organization that's trying to incentivize health technologies to solve Alaska's health-related challenges. There's Spruce Root working on rural community economic development, and there's Alaska Ocean Cluster that's working on trying to get people interested in blue economy type areas. But I suspect it would also be interesting to, for example, get the Fairbanks Climate Action Coalition to pitch some of their energy transition issues. And y'all probably can make a list much longer than I can of the kind of organizations that might come to pitch the problem they're trying to get solved and to encourage people to work on those.
Kaya, who's the ideal audience in that? Like, who do you want in the audience listening to those reverse pitches, and what are they going to do about them?
Yeah, so I'm hoping, you know, the traditional model for this has been to get students that might be working on capstone projects and looking for projects. It might be students in entrepreneurship classes that are looking on a business idea to work on in their class. I'm also hoping that it will be, you know, potentially some of the other, you know, innovative entrepreneurial folks out in our ecosystem that would be interested in working on that. But really, typically the folks that, you know, can work on a discretionary basis on some new challenge are typically going to be students and other folks that are looking, you know, that are either hobbypreneurs or students looking for projects. So I'm really ultimately trying to influence the university researchers, faculty, and students that are looking for projects, trying to get them to steer them onto these projects. But I could see that it could be, you know, other folks like any of us that are, you know, out dabbling in new startup type ventures and looking for opportunities to steer in another direction if we found something that looked attractive.
It brings to mind Dr. Rick Walk at UAA. I don't know if you've crossed paths with him, but he's talked about something similar. And maybe it's an opportunity to just kind of unsilo it from UAA and make it more statewide.
Yeah, I'll follow up with Rick. I haven't seen him recently. He stopped, he was doing some of the entrepreneurship adjunct work. I ended up with some of his projects, some of his classes last fall, but he'd be a good one to tie in there with that also. And the other thing, you know, just I'll mention, but I know I'm going a little longer than I wanted to in terms of time on other things, but, you know, this issue, to your question of, you know, who's this targeting? You wouldn't believe, well, you probably would. I'm always surprised at the number of people that are out in our community that are my age, you know, whatever that is, but older, successful, career type folks that are looking for an entrepreneurial opportunity. This is not just about the youngers that are, you know, trying to do a school project. I know of a number of folks that have, you know, mentioned to me in passing that they're looking for that what's next that they could work on. And are looking for a good idea that means something that matters. And so, you know, it's a little harder for, to get them engaged because they have careers. A lot of them have real jobs. And so this idea of working and becoming an entrepreneur is kind of a scary thing. There's also some trepidation that they have about disclosing to the wide world that they're actually looking for something different to do. But there's really an amazing talent pool of people out there that have had long careers, but would like to step into something like this. And the statistics on entrepreneurship show that we have a large number of entrepreneurs that are, 40 plus, 50 plus year old folks that move into that when the right opportunity comes along to grab them. So back to your original question, Bradley, I hope this will be interesting to anybody that has that kind of mindset on doing something new that matters in the state and wants to be a part of the future economy. But getting those folks to admit that, beyond their own private dreams is sometimes hard. Anything further on this for the moment? Okay, so let's dive into this strategy discussion with the time that we have. I will note that in the meeting notes here, I put a link in there to the original AKV3 plans. There is a strategic plan document out there that's linked. There's also the regenerative proposal for organizational development that Kitty had put together. And so there are some pieces in there. But what I want to do here is briefly share my screen. And this workbook that's been linked in the agenda before, and I'll put it in the chat again so you can bring it up yourself, is something that came up during a recent meeting that was talking about organizations that are trying to implement major change. And this model that Greg Satel's put together, I thought was a really nice one that maybe had some value for organization. And it presents a picture of understanding the process of organizational transformation that you can use in essentially any organization. I think it has value here that begins with creating some clear sense of purpose in what you're trying to achieve, developing a plan for that transformation, and then following through to ensure that this happens. For those of you that are familiar with change management, you'll recognize that underneath this is basically Kotter, spelled with a K, that talks about change management being this process of unfreezing the world as you know it in order to create a readiness for change, and then creating some clarity on where you're trying to go. In our case, we've been talking about this What's Next Alaska, and then working on building the path that connects where people are at to where they're trying to go. And his model does that with this process that we'll spend a little more time talking about. What we wanted to focus in on a little bit today, and Julie and I had a chance yesterday to talk about this some more, and she was really the one last week that really brought this to a head and said, hey, let's not forget about this. What are we really going to do? And I appreciate her sense of, actually taking some action on this and not letting it go. But we want to talk a little bit more about this first phase of the vision of where we're trying to go. And what I really like about this model that ties in with what we've discussed is this nature of a keystone change. That is trying to understand that really essential project or activity or change that's kind of becomes the catalyst for getting where you want to go. And I think it's a good way to think about this Next Alaska activity in terms of, we could do 100 different things like we talked about last week, but what are the right things that we should do that will make a big difference? And so I wanted to take a few minutes and walk through some of that. But let me pause and ask Julie if you've got some thoughts on this that you'd like to throw into this discussion before I take up more of the airtime.
Yeah, so I know that when I was looking at the Cascade workbook, it kind of has the genome of values at the end of the first section. So it's like the helix of DNA on the blue. And I actually think that that's something that could be talked about first and then revisited, because it's important for any organization to have clear values to guide them forward to actually create that change. I really like the vision of tomorrow. I think that exercise of being like, what don't we like? What are we trying to do is a really good start, and then maintaining those, getting those values. Because this workbook, it looks at it in the keystone change. And so I think it's important to like first have the values, thinking about the change, and then going back and making sure that it's actually in alignment of what the whole organization is about, rather than kind of an aside, making that action a true pillar and keystone. So I guess that's mostly my input for that.
So it sounds like you're saying that you'd like to see us jump down to that value section first. Is that right?
I think it could be a vision of tomorrow, then genomes of value, and then keystone change. If you have the thing open for anyone else, it would be pages 9, then 16, then 13. That would be the actual question sections.
Okay, so I've got this up. I put a Miro link in the chat to everybody. And if you're, I'll also share my screen. But if you're a Miro person, you can get online to pull that up. But I'm going to share my screen also here in a second. There we go. So you can see it that way. So Julie, you were suggesting, I'm trying to match up page number, starting with the vision of tomorrow on first.
Yeah, so that's page 9. I don't know where it's on Miro, but
so if you jump into Miro, I put the link in there that hopefully will bring you in to that one. I'm trying to watch for anybody who's trying to get access in this, but I've got it up on the screen here too. Okay, I see Julie got in there, good. So, and just for those of you that haven't used Miro real quickly, you can get to where you might see I'm at by just clicking on my name, where up in the kind of middle top where you see the K. If you just click on that circle K, it'll immediately take you to what I'm seeing, the way I'm seeing it, which is a huge time saver in terms of navigation and zooming around to get in there. And then if you're in Miro, on the left-hand side, you'll see some shapes, and you can click the fourth one down as a sticky note to be able to create sticky notes in there that you can then type in text in the sticky notes. And so the intent here would be to be able to jump into Miro if you can, to be able to add some sticky notes yourself to what we're working on here. So just to kind of get a running start at this then, in terms of what we're looking at, the first section of this workbook that we're kind of stepping past is the prior page that you might have seen that talks about grievances. And it's a pretty standard part of change management processes to try and figure out what the problem is in terms of getting people oriented around the motivation to do something different. But what we're jumping to is this vision of tomorrow, and trying to understand the motivation of what we're trying to achieve that would help people see an opportunity.
Kai, is this available at any time, the Miro? Like, do they have to?
Yeah, no, this will all be available asynchronously also for folks that want to continue working on this later.
Okay, great. Yeah, just because it's like, you know, very close to 11. So I I think the other thing that I would like to add is generally I like to lead, and I do lead people through like journaling processes, and something that I think is great is to just take a couple grounding breaths first to clear your mind and try to actually envision, like, go ahead and read the questions, but try to envision it first and just allow things to come to you, because I think it can really get hung up on small things when we're trying to look a little bit big picture. That's all I've got to say about that.
Mhm. So if those of you that are in Miro want to try and throw a couple stickies down related to the vision of tomorrow, we'll put those. If you also just want to type something in the chat, I'll copy it from the chat over and put it on a sticky for you. Oops, sorry, I messed up I got onto the wrong board. There we go. Waiting your Miro code. I'm trying to see if there's. Oh, I see. And for those of you who haven't played with Miro before, it's really a pretty cool tool. I regret that we just kind of threw everyone into this really quickly if you haven't used it before. But for this kind of online collaborative opportunity, it's a super interesting tool.
Are there other kind of visualization layers, or is it mainly, you know, a brainstorming kind of mind mapping post-it note space?
It is that. What's nice about it is being able to create different scales so you can navigate around a large mind mapping space that I think is better than some of the other tools that I've played with in there. But it allows you, if you want to play with it ahead of time, to do some nice workflows in terms of designing spaces for online collaborative brainstorming and idea management.
I'm sure I've said this before, but the amount of tabs you have on your screen gives me anxiety, Guy.
Yeah.
I do have to hop off, but I appreciate the conversation as always, guys. Have a good weekend.
You bet. Good to see you.
Agreed. I also have to go for a meeting.
So let me just suggest that this will be available for folks to continue working on. You could also jump back up to the grievances one or down to the values one if you want. And I'll share this again and invite people during the week to tinker around with it, and we'll come back to it with a little more time next week. This also just highlights the fact that one of these days we're just going to have a real meeting where we've got more time to dive into some of these things, because we typically run out of time for really in-depth work. But I appreciate everyone getting started with this, and I hope you'll learn a little bit more about this process and add some content. We'll work on it some more next week.
Julie, thanks for encouraging us to dive into this thing a little bit more and actually make a commitment on it. I think that workbook has a lot of a nice process to have us walk through, and it could be helpful for us. And so maybe this is something that we could look at more on the 8th. I think we should keep working on it in the meantime, but having that chunk of time for us to chew through this could be really helpful. And I think being in person and having the space to have these discussions would really open up some cool opportunities for us.
I'm going to have to hop off too, but I did put a comment over in the chat because I can't get into Miro. But I'm happy to pick up this conversation whenever it happens next.
Okay, sounds great. Thanks.
Bye, guys.
Okay, see ya.
Hey.
Thanks, Ryan. Yeah, I like to, I can't even see. Yeah, I like to be focusing with a goal. That helps me a lot. I generally have a writing group on Sundays in the afternoon. So depending how late in the afternoon it is, I don't know that I'll be able to attend. Earlier in the morning to probably 2 p.m. I can do. So it's nice to see everyone, and I will talk to you later. Feel free to email me if you have anything. Okay. Ciao.
See ya. Thank you.